Good evening, everyone. I've just made it back from the Bush Bash in Parks 2024, and on my hard drive, my little mini hard drive here, I got three presentations, and it's probably about time I just unearth them from deep inside that hard drive and actually make them public. That way, people can just enjoy it in their own free time. So I'm going to do all three tonight. All right, let's start with Bitcoin Go to Woe. So the boring stuff at the beginning, obviously, Satoshi, created Genesis block, block 0 back in 2009, with a coin batch reward of 50 Bitcoin, and of course it had the details in the middle where it says the times 3rd of Jan 2009, Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks. Pretty simple stuff. Now the blocks start moving. As you can see here, hash 0, hash 1, hash 2, hash 3, right? So each new block uses the block hash from the prior block to include in the next block hash. So that's a very key element here. So once the hash is done for block 0, it will pick that up, put it into the actual code in the actual header of block number 1, and it'll include it in all the information that it's got and then start hashing onto it. And so that's the way it actually uses the block 0 to be able to sort of encrypt into the chain the actual pathway. If it didn't do that, all blocks would sort of not be binded or connected in any way. So it actually uses the prior information, hashes into the new one, and that way you know that it came from the original source. And of course that goes all the way back to block 0 to wherever it is today, like 860 or 860,000 or something. And so in this particular presentation, I just press the fast forward to 8 years forward, so we're in a more of a modern sort of year. Now, of course, as everyone knows about the halving rewards, at the beginning it was 50 Bitcoins, halves at 25, halves at 12.5, all fairly simple stuff. These block rewards halve every 210,000 blocks, so most common sort of knowledge here. Now, this person is entering, and he's just gone and bought himself an ASIC miner, which is an application-specific integrated circuit. It's basically a whole lot of little chips rigged up to like some sort of motherboards or whatever like that, with a fan at one end and the open end at the other end, so when the wind blows straight through it, and all the wires are connected, so that you can plug it into a power supply and an internet connection. Now, they have two options. Option number 1, you can join a mining pool, and that way you can kind of be involved with other people, or solo mine with a node. Now, just to knock the mining pool part out of the way, I've just done a very basic setup here of what a mining pool generally is. So someone will enter in on the left here. Well, it doesn't even matter if it's left or right, whatever, it doesn't matter. And they'll enter into the pool. All these other black dots are other miners similar to you. They will point their hash towards the pool. Right. There is no need to store the actual chain, because all you're really doing is providing hashing for the block templates that are sent to you. Other miners put in hash and share in the spoils. So if everyone points their hash, and if one particular person wins the actual hash that is required to solve the block, they don't take it all. What they do is the pool wins, and everyone gets a small slice of that reward pile. And it will accumulate until the point where everyone can kind of go and get paid. So you agree to share rewards so long as you can be part of a team, right? So if everyone in the team joins together, pools their hashes together, and you get a big reward at the end, right? Now, the pool will send out the block template and pay the reward to the pool, all right, and list the pool name, and the block is empty and ready to fill. I'm assuming there probably are blocks that come out with all the transactions pre-filled, and then you just hash onto that. But there might also be ones where they'll give you a block template, and perhaps the transaction listing is empty, and you can go and fill it from your end too. That's up to you. But I would say some of the templates probably already have the transactions that they've chosen and plugged it in. But the key point here is that they put in the reward address to the pool, and then the pool will figure out how to distribute it to everybody's wallet after enough rewards is accumulated in the wallets. Now, onto the more the classic style of mining, so that I can at least break things down here, is the solo mine. A new miner opts for more classic mining options. So this is similar to the way Satoshi would have done it when he would have clicked, generate new coins. And in the solo mining option, number one, you have less chance to win a block because obviously competition is fierce, and this competition with hashing power may end up leaving you waiting for 10,000 years to be able to go and be a winner of a particular block. Number two is winning means getting the full reward. So the full reward's 3.125 or something like that right now. So you would get that full reward plus whatever the fees are that comes with it. And in this case, you would need to have a synced node. So the node being the computer which has all the blockchain data on it, you would need that synchronized right up to the most current date. And you would refer to that so that you can know that you're mining onto the last block in the blockchain. So that's going to be all the data you need to be able to do it properly. Now, starting a node. So starting a node, which in this particular instance here, as you can see, Bitcoin Core version 20.0. It's a fairly old version, but that's fine. It's 5 years old or something like that. It just shows you a picture. It is a basic sort of program. This was, like a child, obviously, of the original Bitcoin, Qt software, and this is the program which manages everything. It is it a wallet itself. It can, encrypt, your Bitcoins for you, and it is the one that organizes the mempool space, and it organizes the all the blockchain sort of linkages, everything. This particular program does everything. It is essentially Bitcoin. Everyone who has this type of program on their computer is basically keeping Bitcoin alive. So quickly go through these 5 points here, or 6 points. Download Bitcoin Core, nominate where to save the data. So, obviously, the file size might be pretty big. You might not want to put it on your C drive. Maybe you've got a D or E drive or something like that, or an F drive. You send the data over to E drive or the F drive. You synchronize the blocks. So what you do is you go out there and copy all the blocks for the last 15 odd years. You make sure that all the transactions and the codes and the headers and all that sort of stuff all check out. Everything looks correct and up to date. You encrypt the wallet. You go and put a password in, and it will encrypt any of your actual saved Bitcoin inside the file. If you don't actually have any Bitcoin in this particular wallet, you don't need to encrypt it because there's nothing to keep safe. It just simply is a program that runs things. But if you do plan to ever put any Bitcoin inside this wallet, you will need to encrypt it, and that'll make sure that the wallet is safe. If anyone looks at it, they can't read it. Right now, when you start the mining, you will generate an address to send it to. So it will generate an address, obviously with the encryption, and then if you do go and get any particular generated blocks, it will send your reward to that address. Right? And of course, number 6, wait until it's ready. Syncing nodes. So depending on the quality of your computer and quality of your storage and all that sort of stuff, the syncing could take, at this point in time, anywhere between 1 day for a really whiz-bang computer, It could even be 7 days if it's really, really slow and maybe you've got poor internet connection or something like that. And you could be storing up to, at least 500 gigabytes of storage, or like half a terabyte. I'm not 100% sure right now. It might even be 560 gigabyte right now, maybe even 580. But I'm sure when you go to look online and find out how many gigabytes storage it actually is, it will give you some idea. But you also have to remember that not only do you have to store the 500 gigabytes of blockchain data, you have to store the program itself, and you also have to store the UTXO set, which is every unspent transaction just indexed, ready to be picked up and used when needed. So it'll clean out and recycle all the spent UTXOs, but all the unspent ones, it just categorizes them ready to go when they get picked up and used. It can find it easily, like just opening up a file and going, here we are, this is the one that needs to go. So it'll have blockchain, program, mempool, all that sort of stuff. So it'll categorize everything onto that hard drive. Now you can also prune your nodes as well. So what happens is when you prune it, you will simply you will check obviously a block, and so long as the header is correct and it seems to be checking out, you can go ahead and snip off all of the transactions inside that file and just keep the header only. It's like keeping the receipt of a large shopping list, right? So if you go out there and snip the bottom of your receipt, all the items you bought from the shopping center, and it just says that you paid $98 or something like that, and it was on this particular date, there you go, that's all you've got. So you just guarantee that you paid $98 on this particular day. That is basically your block header, but you don't need to worry about the actual shopping that you actually bought, because you know that you just paid $98 on that day. So that's what it's like to prune the actual blockchain. Now, port 8333. It took me a while to figure out what the hell this was, but it's very important once you really understand. So you might run that node and realize that it's very, very happily receiving information, but it doesn't seem to be talking to anyone, and you kind of wonder why. I'm not going to go into how to be able to connect with it, because it actually is kind of tricky, and some people might be able to tell you exactly what the best button is to be able to unlock it, but there's plenty of node options out there, so they're very, very different for each one. But if you open up port 8333, essentially you will open up your computer to the rest of the internet to be able to look in and be able to interact with you, to be able to trade those blocks and those transactions, right? So if you do not have this unlocked, you will be simply downloading all the information, storing it on your computer, and never issuing it out, right? And we need Bitcoin to be able to issue things out, so that the information of all the transactions and all the blocks continue to circulate around the world, and be the functioning system that it actually is, right? So if you don't have port 833 open, you'll be essentially talking to yourself, and that's no fun. Now inside the node, you've got the blocks. This is sort of similar to what I was talking about before. The blockchain data with an index, right? It'll have the chain state, the UTXO set where the active info is stored. So that's all unspent transactions. They're all indexed, ready to go to be spent when they're needed. The mempool. Now, there's a mempool in everybody's node, right? I used to think that the mempool was some imaginary location where maybe one person held it for everyone, but I had no fucking idea. But the mempool is stored in every single person's node, and there's about 100,000 nodes roughly out there in the wild these days. So everyone has some sort of mempool, and it's not all the same. Some people might go and purge things. Some people might have larger storage. And so every mempool might be a little bit different from each other, but most information is probably the same. You'll have peers, right? The peers will be a connection to other people's nodes. So, you could have any between just 5 connections up to 25 or 100 connections. And you've got your wallet, which is your private keys plus your info. All right. Building a block. Obviously, like I said back at the first slides, you get the hash from the previous block, and you put that into the header. All right. So in this particular thing, you've got a time, the time of the actual incident, the version, the block height, the transactions, the witness data, the nonce, the Coinbase, and down the bottom I've got the Merkle root. Now, what a Merkle root is, right? So this is the Merkle tree. All these blue lines in here, right? So you line up all the transactions. You fill it up with all the transactions, right? And all these transactions get hashed up one space, right? And then the transaction 1 and transaction 2 get hashed together into another hash, and then transaction 3, 4, they get hashed into this one here, and so the hash from 1 2 get hashed with 3 4, and they get merged into a 1 2 3 4 sort of hash, and then this tree just continues to climb all the way up to the Merkle root. So every single transaction will all be hashed into each other, and then hashed into each other again, and hashed into each other, and hashed into each other again until it reaches the Merkle root. And that's why it's so complicated, and that's why it can get so much information and then hash it down to just one big long line. So all of our transactions all get crunched into one simple line, which is just a whole bunch of jumbly letters, and that keeps things relatively efficient. But if we ever need to come back and actually find that transaction, we will need puzzle pieces of the pathway, right? So we'll need the opposing hash of our transaction, right, to be able to collectively prove that our transaction was at the bottom of this Merkle root. But that's something else to talk about another day. Now, the Coinbase. Coinbase, not talking about the exchange with the bald dude. Coinbase is what was one of the original words, where it's actually the reward that you got paid to yourself. So you write a Coinbase reward to your own address, like you're going to write a banking check to yourself, right? Now you add the fees to be able to pay yourself. Now, when you actually add the fees actually kind of go missing on the transactions. Every transaction just looks like there's something missing inside it, but you can't quite tell where it is. But they are all rolled straight into the Coinbase reward up top. So when you actually do the numbers on the entire block, you'll realize that all the transactions check out, but there's a little bit of missing out of all the transactions, and that little bit of that transaction equals the difference in the actual Coinbase reward. And so if you've got 12.5, it may end up being 12.8 because a whole bunch of fees have been bundled into the top one, right? Now, in this particular instance, I've got, so Alice uses a 2.0 Bitcoin UTXO, right? So that means that she has a UTXO which has 2 full Bitcoin inside it, right? Now, she wants to send 1.6 BTC to Bob, right? Alice and Bob have been sending transactions to each other for well over 20 years now. And she will send 0.3 of a Bitcoin back to herself. Now, down in this graph down the bottom, I've got that down as Alice B, right? So that's her change address. So the 0.3 will go back to herself. A lot of people kind of think, where on earth is my 0.3 Bitcoin gone? Well, if you actually do have 0.3 of a Bitcoin, you might go, well, yeah, where has it gone? But in this particular instance, most people don't understand that where this change has gone. They don't realize it's gone back to a brand new address, right? Now, when you look at this, when you punch these numbers together, 2.0 divided, take out 1.6 and take out 0.3, there's 0.1 missing, right? So where did it go? So it gets included in the Coinbase rewards, right? So 2.0, 0.3 goes back to Alice B, 1.6 goes to Bob A, and the fee of 0.1 goes up into the Coinbase reward. That's where it goes. Now, the block is ready. You've done the Merkle root down below. You've hashed all your transactions together. You round out all of the missing fees into your Coinbase reward, and you put your actual Coinbase reward size in there, right? You get the previous block hash from the previous transaction. You enter the time. You enter the version number. You enter the block height. You write down how many transactions there are, and you put in any witness data that's required at all. And you're going to need this, a nonce. And I've got a question mark. What the hell's a nonce? So this writing is not necessarily the nonce. No, this is the final hash. What the nonce is, just to preface what this actually is. The nonce is a random number. It's a random number that gets added to your block header hash, right? So that you can test new things, right? And so if you let's say we say the block header is number 58, right? And number 58 does not win, right? So you go 58 plus 1. 59 does not win. Okay. 58 plus 2. 60, that doesn't win, right? 58 plus 3. 61 wins. Okay, so you've added a nonce of 3 onto number 58, and that provides a winner. So what the nonce is a randomization. You throw randomizations into the block header to be able to really quickly reach some sort of winning block. Because if you were to go out there and had to rebuild the Merkle tree and put in a brand new version all the time and put in a brand new date and all this sort of stuff, it would take far too long to go out there and do the mining. And so adding a nonce just gets the computer to go out there and go, try 1, try 2, try 3, try 4, try 5, try 6, try 7, try 8, and you just keep on try heaps of new numbers to speed up the process of being able to find the winning hash, instead of having to go and redo transactions to find it. It's just too much cumbersome effort, whereas you can just put a random number in, spin it up as quickly as possible, and reach some sort of hash that wins. Now, what is the winning hash? The difficulty target, right? So in this particular instance, you can see block number 1 has 8 leading zeros. Now, as you can see for block 200,000 from 2012, it had 13 leading zeros. Now, block 400 from 2016 had 17 leading zeros. And block 600 from 2019 had 19 leading zeros. And number 800 from, just like last year had 19 leading zeros as well. But you can see that this one's gone from 0.7 to 0.2. So what's actually happening is the number is getting lower and lower and lower and lower, because the leading zeros is supposed to be just basically duds, right? That's all the dud numbers. But this 839A, right, that's the number that you have to get under. And you think about it like this, right? If you had to go out there and score a number, let's bring it down to easy numbers for humans to understand, right? So if you had a target of, let's say, 20, right? And you say, okay, there's a number in my head. I want you to guess what number is in my head, but the number is above 20, right? If you get any number above 20, I'm going to give you a reward, right? And you say, oh, well, that's easy. Okay, so what about 34? I say, well, that's above 20. Here's your reward, right? Pretty darn easy, right? Okay, what if my target was 20, but you must get a score that is under 20. So you must try to do whatever you possibly can to go and get a 19 or an 18, right? Because there's only from 18 all the way down to 1, the amount of potential guesses you have to be able to get underneath 20 is significantly harder than to count, 1 up to, like a Google, essentially, like, 10 billion. There's so many variations from 20 all the way up to 10 billion, but there's only 19 down below 20, right? And so when it comes to these hashes, you're doing a hash and you compare it, and what you're trying to see is you're trying to see if the number actually gets below a certain target level, right? So if you do a hash on one of these ones, right, and it ends up with 15 leading zeros, it's not low enough. You need to be 17 or under, right? And in these particular ones down here, if you generate a hash which ends up with about 18 or 17 leading zeros, it's not low enough. It needs to be under 19 leading zeros and under the 7, right? And in this particular, you need to be under 19 leading zeros and under the 2. So it gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter down below. So sometime in the future, if the hashing does keep on going up, it may end up being you have to get underneath 24 leading zeros, right? So the number is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So that is the difficulty target, and that's why you use a nonce to be able to get to it. So we got a winner. Right, so we got 19 leading zeros, and we reached a 2, and you hash the block to get the lowest number. Right, now you have to wait. Now I'm not 100% sure on the 120 blocks. As far as I know, that's correct. Some people sometimes say 100, some people say 116. But as far as I am concerned, I'm pretty sure it's 120 blocks. So you have to put your your winning block into the chain, and hope that people build onto it 120 more times. All right. So if you mined the block 650,000, you have to wait until 650,121 before you could actually spend your coins. So you really, really need to wait, and you really need to hope that people are going to continue to build on your thing. If people don't build on your block at all, you won't get paid. So that's the thing. If you had have just gotten the reward and you went out there and spent it straight away, well, then, this is an incentive to make you continue. Because if you'd stop continuing and you just try to spend it, who's going to mine the next block for you to be able to spend it in? So it's all part of the game. It's that fight. It's that competition to be able to keep the thing moving. Because if you don't keep it moving, you won't get paid. All right. So this particular instance, this person has won the 12.8 Bitcoin, and this is just a cheap shill just for Amber App. So they will send their 12.8 Bitcoin to Amber App, and they'll sell it for dollars. And never mind the person who's got their tongue out, but I've seen a few Bitcoiners with some pretty hairy beards, but here we go. So the more common person comes in, 2020 or whatever like that, and they go and put their dollars in, and then they buy fragments of that mined Bitcoin from the exchange, and then they go and transfer their Bitcoin, which they bought off miners or other traders from along the way, and they put it into their cold storage with their 24-word seed. And so that's basically it. So the majority of that was how to get that Bitcoin to you at that finished point in time. And it involves everything from nodes, mining, hashing, nonces, building Merkle trees, the whole work. So I'm hoping that gives someone an idea of where their Bitcoin has come from, and maybe you might even go out there and look at your first transaction and find, trace it all the way back to the first block which it got mined in. It's probably be an interesting task, but I hope everyone enjoyed that presentation, and I'll start presentations 2 and 3 after this. All right, thanks for listening.